can jump right into the questions if that's okay.
Yeah, let's go. We're good to go.
Okay. Today we're going to talk about a topic that I think it's really important and crucial for the understanding of narcissistic abuse. And it's about healing, right? So by the way, I know you did a seminar about this recently, so I'm very curious about your answers. Sam, is complete healing a possibility? Or is it maybe more realistic to talk about adaptive management? What expectations should the victims have after narcissistic abuse?
I would say that it's much closer to complete healing, a complete reversal of the damage. The prognosis is pretty good. With one exception, if you have entered the relationship already compromised as far as your mental health, for example, if you've entered the relationship in a post-traumatic state, or if you entered the relationship with borderline personality disorder. In other words, if you have had mental health issues prior to the relationship with the narcissist, then the relationship with the narcissist and narcissistic abuse would tend to exacerbate some clinical aspects and some clinical features of your pre-existing condition, of your pre-morbidity. So that's the only exception. But if you've entered the relationship relatively stable as far as your mental health, then the prognosis is excellent, and there would be a full reversal of most of the damage.
Okay. From your clinical and personal perspective, why does narcissistic abuse generate a type of trauma that maybe traditional PTSD models fail to fully capture, right? What makes this trauma qualitatively different?
Yeah. First of all, I would like, of course, to clarify that I'm not a clinician. I'm a professor of psychology.
Yeah.
So while I do have secondary clinical experience, in other words, I have the clinical experience of people who work with me who are therapists, and I read, of course, the literature, case studies, sometimes case notes even. I don't have a first-hand clinical experience. So that's important. To be honest, in all exchanges, it's important to clarify one's position.
Yes.
Still, having said that, I am the father of narcissistic abuse. I coined the phrase in the 1980s. And the question always arises, why did you bother to designate a special type of abuse? Why wasn't it enough to say abuse? You know, you have been abused by a narcissist. Why did you think, Sam Vaknin, why did you think in the 1980s that we need a special label? And I think we do need a special label. And with the passing decades, I have become even more entrenched in this view. I believe even more that this is needed. I think the main reason is that whenever you are in a relationship with a narcissist, and it could be a romantic relationship, intimate relationship, workplace relationship, friendship, any kind of interaction, a prolonged, sustained interaction with the narcissist, you're actually interacting with a human being who is half-baked, who is not full-fledged, a human being who is missing critical dimensions of what it is to be human. This kind of human being lacks empathy or affective empathy, lacks emotional empathy, lacks the ability to access positive emotions, is overwhelmed by negative affectivity, is antagonistic usually, prone to conflict, and if we use the language of psychoanalysis and object relations theories, then this kind of person is unable to tell the difference between external object and internal object, so he doesn't regard you as a separate external human being. He regards you as a figment in his mind, as an element in his fantasy, as a part of his imagination. He doesn't really believe that you exist. And this kind of person is prone to fantasy. There's a pronounced fantasy defense. So this kind of person is divorced from reality, detached from reality, has impaired reality testing, and so on. There are those who are religiously inclined who say or would say that to be in touch with the narcissist is to be in touch with evil. So you have the likes of Scott Peck and Jordan Peterson and so on, they say, well, narcissism is just another name for evil. And of course, on the extreme side, there are those who say that narcissists are demons or possessed by demons.
Yes,
I
I've
think
heard that.
all
Yes.
these, I think all these people,
Mm,
regarding of the terminology and language they're adopting, what they're trying to say is that the narcissist is alien. The
mm,
experience of being with a narcissist is very similar to the experience of being with an alien species.
mhm.
And this I fully agree with. It is. Now, what the narcissist does, first of all, the narcissist superimposes on you his own deficiencies. Now, when I say his, when I use the male gender pronoun, half of all narcissists are women, are female. Yeah? But for convenience sake, I'm going to continue to use the male pronoun. So he superimposes on you his own deficiencies. For example, the narcissist has never experienced proper separation, individuation from the mother, from the maternal figure. So he doesn't allow you to separate. He
Mhm.
annexes you, he consumes you, he assimilates you, he creates a symbiosis with you. He doesn't allow you to have personal autonomy, independence, agency, decision-making capacity, friends, families, a life, a job. He isolates you, he constricts your life. And because he never experienced separation, he doesn't do separation, doesn't know what is separation. Second thing, for example, is the narcissist is empty inside. There is
Yeah.
no functional self, there is identity diffusion or identity disturbance. And so consequently, the narcissist wants to empty you, to hollow you, to take away your core identity.
Mm,
That's another example. The
mhm.
third example, and the last one, I promise, when we are talking about the fact that the narcissist imposes his own deficiencies on you. So the third example of this is the narcissist essentially is 2 or 3 years old, psychologically speaking, emotionally speaking. It's a case
Yeah.
of stunted or arrested development, a
Mm,
disruption in the formation of identity and self. So the narcissist is 3 years old and he regresses you. He infantilizes you. He forces you to become a child because he's a child. And so
mhm.
there is a lot of infantilization in this. And ultimately, not only do you lose your identity and agency, you lose your adulthood when you're in this kind
Mm,
of relationship.
yeah.
Now, narcissists unknowingly, not deliberately, not premeditatively, unlike psychopaths,
Mhm,
narcissists use a series of Machiavellian techniques. For
mhm,
example, they gaslight. They don't know that they're gaslighting. Unlike the
mhm,
psychopath, it's not intentional. They confabulate. They have memory gaps, so they invent stories as to what might have happened. They have a fantasy defense, so they force you to be immersed in the fantasy. But the impact of all these behaviors is that you feel gaslit. You feel that you're being
mhm,
gaslighted, you know.
mhm,
You lose your own reality testing. You no longer can gauge and evaluate reality properly. You become estranged from reality and estranged from yourself. So this is one example of Machiavellian technique. Another example is entrainment. It's when the
yeah.
narcissist uses verbal cues to essentially synchronize your brain waves with his brain waves. And I'm kidding you not. That's not a
Mhm,
conspiracy theory. That's a recent
yeah.
discovery in neuroscience.
Mhm,
And then he has a vector of invasion, a vector of penetration, and he enters your mind and he installs an application. The process is
mhm,
known as introjection. He
yeah.
introjects himself into your mind. You create an introject of the narcissist. And this introject is with you even when the narcissist is long gone physically. So this is just 10% of the
Mhm,
damages suffered when you are with a narcissist. You lose everything: your adulthood, your agency, your independence, your capacity to think critically, your contact with reality, your everything. You lose everything, and you are left with the voice inside your head, which represents a narcissist. And this voice collaborates with other negative introjects.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you just about that because it has become clear to me that many victims tend to reject or even sabotage their own healing. So yeah, I was wondering if there's something in this dynamic of abuse that programs the victim to remain sick. I think it's what you're talking about, right?
Yes. Mm. To maintain and exert the narcissist control long after he's gone. And the
Mhm.
narcissist message, in collusion with other introjects, if you had, for example, a mother who used to negate you, a mother who used to attack you, criticize
Yeah.
you harshly, and so on, the narcissist introject would collaborate with the mother introject in this example, and
Okay.
they
Yeah.
would create a cluster of negative, automatic negative thoughts, a cluster of negative affectivity inside your mind. And
Yeah.
this cluster would metastasize, it would take over your decision making. And the message of this cluster of voices
Yeah.
is actually you are unlovable, you're unworthy, you don't deserve to be happy, you don't deserve to be healthy, you should destroy yourself. You know, just
Yeah.
go and,
Yeah. That's why I think maybe some victims or many victims report feeling like they don't have an identity after
yes,
the abuse. Um, some is this damage reversible somehow?
all of it is reversible,
Okay.
actually.
Yeah.
With the exception, as I said, for example, if you have borderline personality disorder,
Yeah.
or even borderline personality organization, which is not the
Hmm.
same.
Hmm.
In both cases, you have identity diffusion. In other words, you don't have a stable identity. You don't have a core identity. You don't have a sense
Hmm.
of continuity. And you fluctuate, you shapeshift between values, beliefs, tendencies, preferences, dreams, hopes, fantasies, behavioral patterns, cognitions,
Hmm.
emotions. You're constantly in flux. You're like a kaleidoscope. So
Hmm.
if you're like that, when you have entered the relationship with a narcissist,
Hmm.
your identity diffusion would be magnified dramatically.
Yeah.
And then that might be difficult to reverse. That might be difficult to reverse. Similarly, if you're a codependent or someone with dependent personality disorder, you would enter the relationship as someone who controls from the bottom, someone who displays neediness and clinginess and helplessness in order to actually control the partner. So you would enter the relationship with this, but the narcissist would encourage these behaviors. He would infantilize you. He would regress you as a codependent. He would want you to become even more codependent. So when the relationship is over, your
Hmm.
codependency had become much worse than it used to be. So these are the only caveats. If you entered the relationship with mental health issues,
Yeah.
especially substantial mental health issues, the
Uh-huh.
relationship would have lasting damage. Yeah.
But that's something that happens a lot, right? There's so many people that have codependent tendencies and they engage in a relationship with a narcissist, or at least in my practice, I find that they somehow there's some primorbidity that connects or relates to codependency in their history, in their family.
Yes, well, we don't have statistics, of course.
Yeah, yeah,
Otherwise, I would have cited them, I would have quoted them.
yeah,
But we do have anecdotal evidence and we have case
yeah,
studies, a lot. We have thousands of case studies and so on and so forth. And it would seem that the way to look at it is this. The narcissist is indiscriminate and promiscuous. There
yeah,
is no type. Narcissists are type independent. In other words, they don't care who you are. They don't
yes,
care if you're empathic, if you're borderline, if you're codependent, if you're a psychopath, if you're
yeah,
healthy, if you're not healthy, they don't care about any of this.
yeah,
They care about what I call the four S's. They care about sex, supply, sadistic or narcissistic, services. Services could be, for example, if you have a lot of money or whatever,
mm,
and
mhm,
and stability, safety, a
yeah,
sense of secure base.
yeah,
Now, of course, one way to obtain supply is if the partner is very good looking, because
mm,
then you can parade the partner. You can brag about owning the drop dead gorgeous partner. So we have the
mm,
phenomenon of trophy wives or trophy.
yes,
So everything you can think of in terms of preferences of the narcissist falls under these four S's.
Mhm.
And the narcissist tests you, auditions you. There's a process of auditioning. The
Mhm.
narcissist auditions you, and if you meet two of the four, you get the job. It's a job interview. The job description is you need to meet two of the four. So narcissists
Yeah.
couldn't care less who you are. However, the reverse is not true. The people who end up with narcissists
Mhm.
are discriminatory. They are not promiscuous. They do choose the narcissist. They
Okay.
prefer to be with narcissists. It's a choice.
Mhm.
And the in my from my experience and what I've read and what I've seen, talking to
Yeah.
clinicians and so on, it would seem, although we don't have data, but it
Mhm.
would seem that people with premorbidities or pre-existing conditions, especially borderline personality disorder,
Mhm.
dependent personality disorder, also known as codependency,
Mhm.
people who are people with post-traumatic conditions,
Yeah.
complex trauma, and PTSD. People who are broken and damaged because they've just undergone some life crisis. They are after a divorce, or they've lost a loved one, or they went bankrupt, or they are out of prison, or some major life crisis. These people
Yeah.
are vulnerable, they're susceptible, and they gravitate towards the narcissist because the narcissist exudes an overwhelming sense of self-confidence.
Yes.
Self-confidence of a narcissist is infectious.
Yeah.
If the narcissist is also psychopathic, if we are talking about a malignant narcissist, they would have superficial charm. So
Yeah.
they would be outwardly charming.
Mhm.
And so yes, I would say that everything when I said the prognosis is good, this
Yes.
optimistic
Mhm.
pronunciation has to
Mhm.
do with people who were relatively mentally healthy and non-vulnerable at the beginning of the relationship. And you're right that I'm not sure what's the percentage of such people. Yeah.
I was wondering still, is there anything we can do for these people, for people with with BPD, with dependent disorder? Um, because would they have to work in therapy towards recovery or healing maybe the original personality disorder or mental problem?
Yeah, well, we need to distinguish between the clinical features of the original premorbidity,
Yeah,
of the original condition before the
yeah,
relationship with the narcissist,
yes,
and the added impacts of having a relationship with the narcissist. So,
yeah,
for example, a narcissist regresses you and infantilizes you. That can be
yeah,
tackled in therapy. You
okay,
need to actually go through the entire process of growing up. You're a child now,
yeah,
you've been regressed, you're infantilized. So you need to separate from the narcissist and
mhm,
individuate. You need to regain your core identity and individuality by
yes,
separating from the narcissist. This can be accomplished in therapy. For
yeah,
example, internal family system therapy, transactional analysis therapy, schema therapy. These
oh,
three that I've just mentioned are very good at inducing separation individuation.
yeah,
Similarly, self-psychology, Cohoot, is very
yes,
good at this. Psychoanalysis is good at this, but it would take the rest of your natural life to get anywhere with this. So
yeah,
I don't recommend it.
yeah,
So that's one example of the damage inflicted by the narcissist on you that,
mhm,
regardless of your pre-existing conditions, is reversible. Another example, the narcissist took away your agency, independence, personal autonomy, and so on and so forth. Of course, you can regain these. Another
mhm,
example is the narcissist isolated you to the point that you could no longer gauge or evaluate reality appropriately. You lost your reality testing. The
yes,
narcissist became the sole interface between you and reality. We can teach reality testing in therapy. And
yes,
here, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy would be very useful because
mhm,
cognitive behavioral therapy helps you to debunk automatic negative thoughts and to replace
yes,
them with realistic thoughts. Cognitive behavior therapy is a touchstone. The touchstone is reality.
yeah,
So everything the narcissist did to you could be reversed. Everything, regardless of whether you're borderline or this or that. But the only lasting damage in case, for example, that in case you're borderline, the only lasting damage would be that your identity diffusion would be much more pronounced, much more frequent,
Uh-huh.
and much more difficult to cope with, even in therapeutic setting.
Okay.
This clinical feature would be exacerbated.
Okay. For people that don't have these pre-existing conditions, what would you say maybe would be the first actionable steps someone can take to rebuild a sense of self after the abuse? Because you were talking about, separation, individuation all over again. So that's a lot.
Yeah, that's quite a lot. I agree. The
Yeah.
therapy could be extended.
Hmm.
Therapy could be extended. The damage is massive and all pervasive.
Yeah.
Therapy could and probably should be extended, minimum 6 months, I think, but probably we're talking years sometimes, 2, 3 years.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right that it's on multiple levels, multiple dimensions of the personality, of cognition, of executive functions, of affect management, I mean, the damage is enormous, but reversible, luckily. Now, the
Yeah.
first thing I
Yeah.
think, the advice I give people, which is not a popular advice, especially among clinicians, because it takes away a lot of their income. I recommend to people to not
Yeah.
attend therapy initially. And I will try
Okay.
to explain why. Only
Yeah.
initially. Of course, therapy is a critical, integral feature of healing and recovery. You can't do it on your own. You can't accomplish this alone. You need help, structured help by someone who knows what he's doing. But initially, don't go to therapy. Why?
Okay.
Because you have the narcissist voice inside your mind.
Yes.
If you go to therapy, the voice of the narcissist would hijack the therapy. For example, imagine that you attend therapy immediately and the therapist provide you with insights about yourself.
Mhm.
The narcissist inside your mind would hijack these insights and
Mhm.
leverage them against you. So, for example, the narcissist could create a depressive reaction when you get an insight that is a bit critical. The narcissist would amplify, the narcissist in your mind, the introject, would amplify it and would induce depression.
Yeah.
If you get an insight or there is a process that leads to some uncertainty, for example, the therapist can tell you you should exit your comfort zone. Exit your
Mm.
comfort zone. It's a good advice. But
Mhm.
it creates uncertainty. The voice of the narcissist, the introject, would hijack this advice and would induce in you anxiety. So the voice of the narcissist in your mind would pathologize, contaminate the therapeutic process as
Yes.
it contaminates everything else. It contaminates your friendships, your relationships with your family, your view of your history, your everything. This voice contaminates, pollutes. It's a pollution. So
Uh-huh.
the first thing you should do before you attend therapy, you should do your best to get rid of this voice. Now,
Okay.
it's not as complicated as it sounds.
Mhm.
All you need to do basically is whenever you hear an internal voice, write it down. Just write it down. And then try to identify which of these sentences belongs to your own authentic voice and which of these sentences is alien, is coming not
Mm.
from you. Now, some of these sentences may be coming from your mother introject, some of these sentences from a teacher, from a peer, some peer, ex-lover, your ex, whoever. You have hundreds of voices in your head.
Yeah.
Most human beings, about
Mm.
5% don't have this, by the way. It's a recent discovery.
Mm.
It's a recent
Okay.
discovery in neuroscience that 5% do not have an internal dialogue. I was pretty shocked. I thought it was universal. But 95% do have it.
Yeah.
So, and you have dozens, if not hundreds of voices. Everyone who has ever crossed your life, everyone you have ever interacted with in a relatively significant or meaningful way, you have an introject. You have a voice inside your head representing this
Mhm.
person.
Yeah.
So you would end up fulfilling many pages, with statements and sentences because you will discover that these voices are talking to you constantly.
Mhm.
Now, there's a coalition of these voices, there's a cluster of these voices, which represent society in the process of socialization. And it's also known as conscience, your conscience.
Yeah.
There's a
Mhm.
coalition of voices. There's a coalition of voices of parental figures, and so on. And I will give you a rule of thumb, a very simple rule. after you write down all these sentences, how to identify which of these sentences is really you.
Mm.
Voices or sentences that are negative about you, that try to drag you down, take you down, harshly critical, they create an image of you or a self-concept of you, which is essentially negative. These are not
Mhm.
your voices. This is
Yeah.
not your voice. Your voice is a friend. Your voice is always positive, not your voice is not Disneyland. It's not like stupidly positive, but your voice is
Mhm.
balanced. Your
Yeah.
voice always includes a major positive component. Your voice is always friendly, always has your back, always supportive of you, gives you succor, compassionate, affectionate, etc. If you come across a statement in your mind, an introject
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
tells you, for example, don't go on dating. You're pretty ugly. That's not your voice.
Mm.
If you have a voice in your mind that tells you you're really not good with money, if I were you, I wouldn't start this business. That's not your voice.
Uh-huh.
Could be your mother's voice, your father's, it's not your voice. If you come across a voice that says you've been through a lot, right now you're not at peak performance, but things are
Mhm.
going to be okay. I trust you. You're resilient enough to survive and to thrive. That is your voice.
Uh-huh.
So, having done this for a while, you will begin to notice that your authentic voice, your friend, your internal friend, is
Yeah.
actually becoming dominant and is silencing the other voices gradually. It's a gradual process. When you
Could you literally silent it? I'm sorry
sorry,
to interrupt you.
sorry,
Could you literally silent it like,
you could also do this. Yes, you could verbalize.
okay,
It's called
okay,
verbalization. You could say, "Shut up."
okay,
Absolutely.
okay,
Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. You're quite
okay,
stupid. Look at your own life. Like, you look at your own life. I mean,
okay.
who are you? Who are you to tell me this? And so you can absolutely,
Yeah.
you can have debates. You can have
Hmm.
fights, conflicts. You can be antagonistic, with
Okay.
with these voices. But ultimately, the more you listen to the authentic voice, it's gonna take over and it's gonna prevail. It's gonna eliminate and silence all the other voices.
Yeah.
At that minute, when you feel that most of the time you're talking to your authentic voice, which is,
Yes.
as I mentioned, positive, optimistic, but balanced. When you are in touch with this friend, really, and it's most of the time you're listening to this voice, you're ready for therapy.
Okay.
If you go to therapy when the other voices are dominant, they're gonna hijack the therapy and use it against you. It's like the famous
Mm.
Miranda warning. Anything you say can and will be used against you
Mm.
in a court, in your internal court.
No, yes, you're absolutely right. I have found that there is so much resistance. Even when people know what to do, they can really engage in the behavior. They tend to sabotage the situation and they do not overcome it.
Yeah.
For example, here in Latin America, therapists work a lot with EMDR or
Yeah.
body-centered therapists. Would you say that's a good approach
It's
to
an excellent
to
approach.
okay.
I developed something called the ninefold path,
Yeah.
ninefold path to healing. And it has three components. It has body, mind, and function. You should absolutely start with the body.
Yeah.
The body generates feedback loops that have a pronounced impact on the mind. Even exercising could have great impact. But as Van der Kolk and others have said, the body keeps the score. The seat of your
Yeah.
trauma, the container, the repository is your body. You cannot process your trauma effectively if you totally ignore your body, only through your
Yeah.
mind. You cannot do that. And the reason is very simple. There's no mystery about it. It's not something, Akashic records. The reason is that when you went through the trauma, when you have experienced the trauma, this has had physiological impacts.
Yes.
Your blood pressure went up, your heartbeat went up, your immune system went down, you were much more sick, insomnia, sleep disorders. All of these are typical accompaniments or side effects of trauma. So when you want to
Mhm.
reverse the trauma, you need to tackle initially these symptoms, which together amount to a syndrome. You need to tackle
Yeah.
these symptoms initially,
Yeah.
and then you need to learn how to use your body to reverse trauma or at
Mhm.
least ameliorate it, and then to resist trauma, because you can learn to resist trauma, by the way. May
Okay.
I add
Yes.
one very unpopular observation? People talk about trauma the way they talk about cancer or
Yeah.
tuberculosis, as if it was some kind of clinical entity, totally objective, not dependent on anything. Like,
Mhm.
and that's of course nonsense.
Mhm.
Trauma is not a clinical entity.
Mhm.
Trauma is a subjective reaction, and it critically depends on hundreds of other variables. In other words, you could expose 10 people to the same event,
Yes.
and only one of them would be traumatized. The other would walk away unscathed, untouched, unaffected. That's a fact.
Yeah.
So that goes to show that there is a vulnerability to trauma. The trauma is the outcome, excuse me for a minute,
Yes. Don't worry.
the trauma is the outcome of an interaction between an external event or set of events or
Mhm.
environments and something in you. You need to be primed for trauma. You need to be ready for trauma. You
Mhm.
need to be on the verge of trauma, anyhow. So, um, you need to develop resistance to trauma. These nine other people, they are resistant to trauma. You are not.
Okay. Mm.
There is a deficiency in you. Deficiency, you're not resilient. So that's not popular because when I say this, people,
Mm.
no, everyone would have been traumatized. Not true at all. That's not
No,
true.
not true. Yeah.
And today we know, for example, that's the latest guidelines. We know, for example, initially, until about 2 or 3 years ago, we used to debrief people. Like they had a trauma,
Yeah.
and we would immediately ask them to repeat the trauma or recall the trauma and to describe the trauma. And today we know that this is a big disaster because when you debrief people immediately after the trauma, it
Mm.
imprints the trauma. There's an imprint, and then it's
Mm.
very difficult to
Yeah.
reverse it. But this is also indicative of mechanisms of resilience to trauma because uh, people who are traumatized, when they re-experience the trauma deepens.
Yeah.
People who are not traumatized, when they recall the event, it does not create any trauma. So the recall in people who are susceptible to trauma seems to enhance the trauma,
Uh-huh.
which is proof positive that these people have reduced immunological response, if you wish,
Okay.
psychoimmunological response to trauma. They're
Yes.
primed for trauma. I call it they're primed for trauma.
Mhm.
So that's also a kind of response to your initial first question. When you
Yeah.
say, can it be reversed, not reversed? Many people in relationships with narcissists, many people who have experienced narcissistic abuse are not traumatized. They're
Mhm.
not traumatized because they're resilient to trauma. Others are traumatized. So it could end up being a complex trauma case, or it could end up being a very bad experience. And and this also reflects on the prognosis.
Yeah.
It's also prognostic, there's prognostic value to this.
So would you say it could be an objective for example, for the therapy to help people develop resilience to trauma after the narcissistic abuse?
It's pretty shocking that there is no such thing in any treatment modality that I'm aware of.
Yes.
I think
Okay.
it's pretty shocking.
Yeah.
I think there is a need and a possibility to teach people how to resist trauma, to develop trauma
Mm.
resilience or
Okay.
trauma resistance. I think it's
That.
doable, and I think
Yeah.
I think everyone should learn this. Not only if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist,
Yeah.
because
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
whenever you are in a relationship, you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Whenever intimacy is just another name for vulnerability. So whenever you are truly intimate, I'm not talking about people with insecure attachment style. These
Yes.
people, it's another example of prognostic value. People, ironically, people with
Yeah.
insecure attachment style have a much better prognosis because
Mm.
they're much less impacted. They don't have trauma. They don't have, they couldn't care less. They walk away.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
But with the exception of these kind of people, people with secure or relatively healthy attachment style, non-avoidant attachment style,
Yeah.
these people uh, are vulnerable because they are intimate. There is intimacy in their relationships, and by definition, they're vulnerable. And you could be
Mhm,
traumatized even if your partner is not a narcissist,
mhm.
even if your partner is not a psychopath. You could be
Yeah.
traumatized because your partner suddenly made a life choice, which means
Mm,
that the relationship is over. You could be
mhm.
traumatized because your partner cheated on you, engaged in
Yeah.
infidelity. There are a million ways to be traumatized. So I think when anyone reaches the age of dating or the age of interactions with other people for reasons of intimacy, that includes friendships, sex, intimate relationships. When you reach this age, which let's say, I don't know, 12,
Yeah.
14, around this age of early to mid adolescence, we need to teach trauma resilience and trauma
Mm.
resistance.
Yes.
Absolutely. And it's
Completely agree.
pretty
Yeah.
shocking that there is no such thing. It's even more shocking that when you go to be treated for trauma, all the
Mhm,
trauma treatment modalities, that includes
mhm.
mind-body modalities such as EMDR and so on. What
Yeah.
they teach you or what they attempt to do, they attempt to reverse the trauma. But that's it. It's like,
Mm.
you have lung cancer. You come
Yeah.
to the doctor tells you, okay, we're going to radiate you and we're going to give you chemotherapy. But the
Yeah.
doctor doesn't tell you not to smoke. There's
Yes.
no attempt to deal with the cause, but only with the effects, with the symptoms. So
Yeah.
it's symptomatology. EMDR is totally symptomatology, total
Yes.
symptomatology.
Yeah.
Even to some extent, CBT is still too much concerned with symptoms.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emphasis in all the sphere of psychotherapy with symptoms, not with causes.
Yes.
And I think that's a major
Mhm.
mistake.
That is really insightful because, yeah, there's not an approach that I know of that really teaches you how to face trauma and be resilient when it comes, right?
Yeah, preemptive approach.
Yes. Yes.
Preemptive approach, prophylactic approach.
Yeah.
There's no
Um,
prophylactic therapy. Like you don't go to therapy unless something horrible happened to you, or unless something is not working, or unless it's like therapy fixes things. Therapy shouldn't only fix things. Therapy should prevent
mm,
things.
mhm.
Exactly like medicine. I
Yes.
mean, real medicine. I studied medicine. In medicine, they teach you. Actually, today, the emphasis mostly is about preventing, not about
Yes.
curing or healing. Most of the
Um,
emphasis is lifestyle choices, and you don't have this. They don't even
mm,
teach you how to avoid narcissists and psychopaths. Like, why not teach adolescents how to avoid narcissists and psychopaths?
mm,
It's crazy. They don't teach you how to develop life plans and life goals.
mm.
Also crazy. How to avoid or how to resist trauma. I can give you a very long list of prophylactic measures, which
Yes.
would have saved a lot of pain and maybe would have diminished the earnings and profits of many therapists. So maybe that's the reason.
I want to talk to you about no contact because it is presented as the gold standard for healing in this case. Why would you say that is? Why is this so important?
When I developed the no contact standard in the 80s,
Yeah.
it was a set of 27 strategies.
Yes.
And I was immediately attacked by the entire profession, literally.
Mm,
Professors and scholars and clinicians, and everyone was attacking me
mhm.
because they said that it's a very wrong advice. And first of all, should always give a second chance. And it is through contact that you gain closure. And it is through contact that healing can take place. And so the emphasis at that time, we are talking
Yes.
40 years ago, the emphasis was contact. So the no contact thing was iconoclastic and was perceived as a seriously harmful advice. To this very day, if you go online, you can find echoes of this debate. They say some Vaknin gives harmful advice. And then you
Okay.
look a bit further and you discover they're talking about no contact.
Mm.
Today, no contact is the gold standard. And not only online, but I would say even mainstream gold standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, and the reason I suggested no contact in the first place, which became much more evident 20 or 30 years later,
Yeah.
was that the narcissist has an immediate impact on you. First of all, there's a series of studies
Yeah.
which demonstrated pretty conclusively that you can diagnose someone with narcissistic personality disorder accurately 85% of the time if you are exposed to a video of that person which is 30 seconds long. If you see an email by this person, or if you even see a photograph of this person. And
Wow.
I'm not talking about diagnosticians, clinicians, professors of psychology. I'm talking
Hmm.
about lay persons. I'm talking about anyone. So there are a lot of studies, and they were put together in the famous handbook of narcissistic personality disorder,
Hmm.
edited by Keith Campbell and others. So today we know that even if you see a photo or a short video or an email, you can diagnose narcissist accurately. Then there was a series of studies in Harvard University,
Yeah.
and these studies demonstrated that you can judge people generally appropriately if you're exposed to them for 3 seconds.
Hmm.
3.
Hmm.
Why is that? Because your state of mind changes. The discovery was that when people, for example, were exposed to a narcissist via photograph or
Hmm.
video
Hmm.
or email for 30 seconds, they develop acute discomfort bordering on anxiety. And later
Okay.
on, I coined the phrase uncanny valley reaction. Uncanny valley is not
Yeah.
my phrase, but uncanny valley reaction is my phrase. So
Yes.
I coined it to describe the reaction to narcissism.
Yeah.
In other words, even 30 seconds with a narcissist create the equivalent of anxiety,
Mm.
discomfort at least, but definitely
Hmm.
acute discomfort.
Hmm.
Imagine 30 days, imagine 30 months, imagine 30 years.
Mm.
If you want to avoid severe mental health impacts, there is no way you can interact with a narcissist. There is no benign interaction. There is no closure, of course. Narcissist never affords you closure, but there's also no benign. Uh, why is that? Because a narcissist is a predator, and the narcissist has been conditioned to push buttons.
Mm.
He's a predator who pushes your buttons. First of all, narcissists have cold empathy. Cold empathy
Hmm.
is another phrase that I coined to describe a combination of cognitive empathy and reflexive empathy. So narcissist scans you within the first few seconds, scans
Yes.
you, identifies your vulnerabilities and weaknesses, and then pushes these buttons. He doesn't have an emotional reaction. He doesn't say, "Oh my God, he's sad." He says, "Oh my God, he's sad. How great.
Mm.
Now I can accomplish something. He's vulnerable. His defenses are down. I can accomplish something." So using cold empathy, the narcissist then proceeds to play on your vulnerabilities and weaknesses and frailties and insecurities and fears. And he
Mm.
plays on these things. He amplifies them.
Hmm. Hmm.
He leverages them to modify your behavior, to take over your mind, to destroy your core identity, to take away your agency and independence, so on and so forth. And all this is accomplished literally on a first date.
Yes.
Literally. Before you know it, on a first date, It is the narcissist who is making all the decisions. Where to
Mhm.
go, what to eat, how long to stay. Suddenly, there's a hostile takeover, and you're no longer.
Mhm.
I'm talking about the first date.
Mhm.
So the only solution, the only practical advice is no contact. Of course, there are many situations where no contact is impossible. And then there are other techniques, some of them developed by me, some of them by others,
Yeah.
that are second best. So there will be gray rocking the
Yes.
narcissist, not
Yeah.
providing the narcissist with attention and narcissistic supply,
Mhm.
mirroring. I mean, there are other techniques. But if you can at all, no contact. And one more thing
Mhm.
about no contact. If you have a narcissistic son as his mother, you should go no contact. If your father is a narcissist, you should go no contact. If your mother
Mhm.
is 89 years old and dying, you should go no contact. This is
Mm.
all bullshit. All these stories are excuses to remain in touch with the narcissist. So I don't buy any of them.
Okay.
And I can even demonstrate to you how people invent situations, create situations
Mhm.
in order to stay in touch with the narcissist, and they're not aware of it. For example, litigation in court. They
Yeah.
go to court and they say to themselves, you see, I hate the narcissist. I'm attacking the narcissist. I'm suing the narcissist. But actually, behind the scenes, it's a way to stay in touch. People,
Mm.
victims deceive themselves. Victim,
Yes.
victims create narratives that explain why absolutely they must stay in touch. Like, he's my son, she's my mother, he's my father, or I need to sue the narcissist. These are all excuses.
Yes, there are even more complicated scenarios, I think, when there are shared children, they work together, there is financial dependence. Um, Even then, I mean, of course, you have to go no contact, but it's really hard for some
It's
people. How
complicated.
would you tackle that? Yeah.
It's not hard, it's complicated.
Okay.
Hard means that you have an
Yeah.
emotional response to the no contact. Like, you want to be in
Yes.
contact, but it's hard. It's hard on you.
Yeah.
That implies an emotional background. What
Yes.
you mean to say, I think, is that it's complicated.
Yeah.
And yes, it's complicated. So if you have common children, maybe you should communicate via lawyers, maybe.
Yes.
If you work together, maybe you should no longer work together.
Yeah.
If you live in the same city and you have to see him because he's in the same street, maybe you should move away.
Yes.
Of course, it's complicated. Of course, it's costly.
Yeah.
If you're financially dependent, then McDonald's has openings. You can flip hamburgers.
Yeah.
Even Even if you're a PhD and you used
Mm.
to be a professor, you can still flip hamburgers because your mental
Mm.
health is the number one priority.
Mm.
But people tell themselves stories. They deceive themselves. They say, I can't leave my job, or I'm dependent on him, or I have common children, or there are extreme cases where, for example, there is what we call coercive control.
Yes.
So the narcissist took away all your personal documentation, locked you in the house. You don't have a key. The telephone is disconnected, and so, well, that's imprisonment. That's a crime, by the way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
are very extreme cases where you have to be in touch with the narcissist. But in 30 years of practice,
Yes.
I have yet to come across anyone who succeeded to convince me that they have no choice but to be in touch with the narcissist. Not one case of
Yeah.
thousands.
Yeah. You also talk about well, these people are also immersed in a fantasy, right? When talking about the shared fantasy, and that's something I see a lot because there's the emotional weight for these people to unconsciously behave, for example, like the mother of the narcissist. And that's sometimes the main reason I see people cannot get out. They are trying to help him, to save him, to take care of him. How do you deal with that? Because you often say one must exit the shared fantasy, the shared fantasy, but how do you do that?
It all boils down to two clinical phenomena. One is
Yeah,
loss aversion. When you're averse to loss, you
yeah,
consider loss as the most horrible thing that can happen to you.
yeah.
And the second thing is malignant optimism or malignant hope,
Mm,
pathological hope, as
hmm.
Shadow de Angelis calls it. So um, the narcissist offers you a way out of reality.
Yes.
In order to comply or collude with a narcissist in the creation of the shared fantasy and its maintenance, you need to be
Hmm.
someone who is seriously disenchanted with reality,
Hmm.
seriously disappointed, seriously hates, you hate reality. And it is a narcissist who is the master of fantasy. The narcissist offers
Mm,
you a deal. He says,
mm,
I'm going to take you away from reality. I'm going to introduce you into my reality, my alternative reality. And within
yes.
this alternative reality, you're going to be idealized so you can fall in love with your perfect image of
Yeah.
perfection. You're going to
Hmm.
feel safe because I'm going to make all the choices and decisions. So you will
Hmm.
never ever be responsible for anything. You will never, you will never have to think. You and within this fantasy, there will be a lot of excitement and thrill. It's very colorful. It's
Hmm.
technicolor fantasy. It's a little like a movie. And, and this is irresistible to people whose reality is drab and dreary and black and white and
Hmm.
repetitive and routine. And so if I were to venture a guess, a precondition for collaborating with a narcissist in his shared fantasy is that
Hmm.
you're a bit depressed, that there
Okay.
is a background of dysthymia
Mm,
of some kind, a bit turned off by reality,
hmm.
looking desperately to escapism.
Yeah.
And then you enter the fantasy, and it is everything the narcissist promised you. It's exciting
Yeah.
and thrilling. It's unpredictable. It's full of color. You feel safe because you have a mother. The narcissist is your mother. You suddenly have a child because the narcissist is also your child. That's my
Yeah.
dual mothership principle.
Yes.
So it caters to your maternal instincts. And maternal instincts, men have maternal instincts also. It's not limited to women.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can be, a mother by proxy or vicariously a mother. It's
Yeah.
perfect. It's a perfect alternative to reality.
Yes.
It's a virtual reality. And so it's very addictive and very intoxicating, very
Mm,
difficult to break because what do you have to offer to these people? Imagine that you talk to a victim and say, "You are in a fantasy. You should stop it.
mm,
Stop the
yeah.
fantasy." She's going to ask you, "Stop the fantasy and go where? Stop the fantasy and do what?
Mm,
Stop the fantasy for what's the alternative you're offering me?
hmm.
Reality?
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
what you're offering me? I did reality before. It didn't work. It's not
Hmm.
working for me." And so it's very difficult. Additionally, of course, there is the double bonding. There is a trauma bonding, which is the
Hmm.
outcome of intermittent reinforcement. And there is also the drama bonding, because drama, you develop tolerance to drama, so you need to escalate the drama all the time, but you also develop an addiction to drama. So
Hmm.
drama becomes a defining feature of your life and of who you are and so on. What I'm trying to say, I think, is that fantasy is a total solution.
Yes.
It's not a partial solution. It's not a daydream.
Hmm.
It's not a fantasy is not limited to a highly specific aspect of reality. Or
Hmm.
fantasy is a complete alternative to reality. Like you have
Yes.
to choose. If you choose reality, you can never have any kind of fantasy. If you choose fantasy, you can never have any kind of reality. And increasingly more and more people are choosing fantasy. Fantasy is becoming very fast an organizing principle of reality.
Hmm. Hmm.
Look at all modern technologies. Look at the movie, cinema. It's to escape reality. You escape reality for 2 hours. It's dissociative. Look at
Mm,
social media. Look at artificial intelligence. Look at the multiverse. All these technologies have one thing in common. They're fantasy-based technologies, video games. They afford you a dissociative escape from reality. And today, children play video games, young people under the age of
Yes.
18, they play video games 6.5 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's the average. They play video games 6.5 hours a day.
Mm.
What do they do with the rest of their time? Mostly social media.
Mm.
What does it teach us? People do not want to be in reality.
Mm.
They don't. And technology caters to this need. And who is the greatest master of fantasy? Who is the Ubermeister of fantasy? It's the
Mm.
narcissist.
Mhm.
Pathological narcissism is a fantasy defense.
Mhm.
Everything in the narcissist's life is a fantasy. His false self, his shared fantasy, everything is fantasy. There's nothing real in narcissism. Narcissists
Mm.
cannot tell the difference between fantasy and reality, between external object, internal object. In this sense, narcissism is a bit pseudo-psychotic.
Yes.
And so the narcissist comes to you and says, not only am I going to give you an alternative world, which is as exciting as any movie you have ever seen, but I'm also going to take away from you your responsibilities, your duties, your obligations, your accountability, so that you feel not only safe, but you feel angelic, you feel absolved, you feel
Mm.
like you are impeccable and
Mhm.
immaculate, because
Mhm.
any mistake would be mine, says the narcissist. Any mistake would be my mistake. Any
Mhm.
decision would be my decision. Any consequences would be my consequence. I assume all this so that you can become a child, in effect. Within the
Mhm.
fantasy, you become a child because only very small children don't have any responsibility, don't make any decisions, make no choices, and so on. Small children. You see
Mhm.
the same situation in dictatorships. In dictatorships, or even in authoritarian regimes, like what is happening now in the United States with Donald Trump. Yeah,
Yeah.
the leader comes to the population and says,
Mm.
"Give me all your power,
Yeah.
give me everything, make me the sole decision maker. I will make all your decisions for you, all your choices, and so on. If anything goes wrong, you're blameless. You didn't make the decision, I did." It's a relief. It's
Uh-huh.
anxiolytic. It reduces anxiety. To be in reality, as Jean-Paul Sartre said, to be in reality is the angst of having to make choices. When you are in reality, you have to choose, you have to decide, and things can go wrong and very often go wrong. That creates
Mhm.
anxiety. If someone comes to you and says, you no longer need to do any of this, it reduces your anxiety. It's anxiolytic. And
Mhm.
that's the power of fantasy. It takes
Mm.
away your depression because it's very thrilling and colorful, and it takes away
Mhm.
your anxiety. Fantasy is a cure to depression and a cure to anxiety combined. A
Mm.
pill, like the
Yeah.
Matrix, like the
Yes.
blue pill in the Matrix.
Yes. Yes. Well, this has been a masterclass, Sam. Thank you so much. How are you on time? Do you have time for a couple more questions? Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you. Just um, to finish, I was wondering if maybe because I agree with you, people deceive themselves a lot in this situation, and it's really hard to be conscious and aware of what's really going on, right? So, what would you say are maybe the most common mistakes survivors make during recovery to prolong their suffering?
basically two. One is the belief that you can talk to the narcissist, you can negotiate, you can compromise,
Mm.
you can maybe reverse some of the damage through the narcissist, or collaborate with the narcissist, or work with the narcissist, or reach a modus vivendi with the narcissist, or do anything with the narcissist.
Yeah.
So this gives you the legitimacy to remain in touch with the narcissist
Hmm.
with some kind of, as I said, malignant optimism that
Mm.
the narcissist still has something to give you which would make you feel better or restore you somehow, and so on and so
Hmm.
forth.
Hmm.
The truth is, of course, that the narcissist is incapable of providing you with anything because he has taken everything. He has taken everything. Why would he give anything back? So if you want closure, he would never give you closure. Because to give you closure is to empower you and to disempower the narcissist. If you want to compromise and negotiate with the narcissist, it's impossible because it's my way or the highway. It's narcissists are highly contumacious. They reject authority. They are
Hmm.
defiant. They're a bit antisocial or
Hmm.
dissociality
Hmm.
in this sense.
Yeah.
And they're not open to negotiation and compromise. Absolutely not. If you expect the narcissist to restore you somehow, um, by allowing you to love him or displaying, on the very contrary, some compassion or some empathy, or that's of course
Hmm.
a doomed cause, and so on.
Yes.
So the greatest first mistake is to say, I'm staying in touch with the narcissist because the narcissist has something that can benefit my mental health.
Mm.
He took away something from me, he can give it back. And that is,
Hmm.
of course, the foundation of intermittent reinforcement, because in intermittent reinforcement, the abuser takes away something from you, which only he can give back to you.
Yes.
Like, I hate you now, but I'm the one who can love you. I can reverse the hatred. I am cold, but I can be warm. So first he takes something, then he gives it back. And this take and give and take and give and take, conditions you. It's a form of conditioning. So
Yes.
there is this belief that, yeah, the narcissist took a lot from me. He took my independence, he took my identity, he took my money, maybe. He took my sex, he took everything from me. But now he has these things, and maybe he will have pity on me, or maybe for all time's sake, or maybe he is actually quite rational and reasonable if you know how to talk to him, or maybe if I love him enough, or maybe somehow all these toys that he has taken away from me, he's going to
Hmm.
share these toys, or is he going to give them back to me? It's very infantile thinking. It's
Hmm.
like two years old which are fighting over toys, you know?
Yeah.
So this is the first mistake. First mistake is do not be in touch with the narcissist. There's nothing to get. And he can continue to take from you. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah.
And the second mistake is the exact opposite, to demonize the narcissist. When you demonize the narcissist, you engage in an infantile primitive defense mechanism known as splitting. The
Mm.
narcissist is all bad. That makes me all good as a victim.
Hmm.
Wait a minute. If I'm all good, then whatever has happened to me has nothing to do with me. I didn't contribute anything to it. I was just there, being an angel. And this demon came and,
Mm.
did things to me.
Hmm.
Why is this bad? It's bad for two reasons. When you say that things were done to you, that you contributed nothing, that you're responsible for nothing, that you had nothing to do with your abuse, that you were an inert object, a recipient, a receptacle of the abuse, a container, you are disempowering yourself. You are
Hmm.
creating an external locus of control.
Hmm.
You are not a master of who you are and of your life. If you say the narcissist had all the power and I was completely powerless, this is learned helplessness.
Yes.
You will never heal. You will never recover as long as you claim to have been 1000% helpless. To
Mm.
recover and to heal is to regain agency, to regain power, to self empower. The
Mm.
only way to do this is to take responsibility for bad decisions that you've made, stupid choices, for remaining in the relationship despite everything, for getting addicted to fantasy. You need to take responsibility for this thing. Because the minute you do, it becomes clear that the narcissist is not as powerful as you make him to be. That
Mhm.
you actually do have the power to not repeat these mistakes again.
Yes.
So, and the second problem with this approach of the narcissist is demon and I'm an angel,
No.
is that you remain stuck in a victimhood stance. Your victimhood becomes your identity. Victimhood is not an identity. It's a
Mhm.
historical fact.
Mhm.
You have been victimized. That doesn't make you a lifelong victim.
Yes.
Something happened to you, and that's it. Victimhood is like, I don't know, uh, pregnancy. Let's take the case of pregnancy. The fact
Mhm.
that you have been pregnant once doesn't make you pregnant for all life.
Mhm.
You have been victimized. It's not your identity. The minute you adopt victimhood as your identity,
Mhm.
it becomes a major problem because victimhood is a fantasy. And so victimhood becomes addictive. You see, when you're a victim,
Mhm.
everyone pities you, you get sympathy, you have rights, you feel entitled, you have rights to special treatment as a victim, you feel
No.
entitled, you make money. If you write books or make videos, you make money. So you
Mhm.
have every incentive to continue to be a victim. And what's the only way to continue to be a victim? To be victimized.
Mhm.
Your brain pushes you to be re-victimized so that you can maintain the profitable victimhood status.
Mhm.
If victimhood is your identity, then you will be victimized all your life. Now,
Mhm.
this is not speculation. We have
Mhm.
studies that show that people with borderline personality disorder who perceive themselves as victims
Mhm.
are re-victimized much more than people who do not consider themselves victims.
Mhm.
So re-victimization in borderline personality disorder is much higher than
Wow.
in other conditions because most people with borderline personality disorder have this victimhood stance. We have
Mhm.
studies by Gabay, 4 studies by Gabay and her partners, colleagues.
Mhm.
Um, the the victimhood the victim about victimhood identity with pretty amazing studies.
Mhm.
She described competitive victimhood. She described how victims compete. I'm more victim than you. My
Mhm.
abuser was much worse than your abuser. And then they leverage their victimhood and demand special treatment and make profits. And how this becomes a victimhood for life. This is the Gabay studies, which are now by
Okay.
now seminal studies. We have
Yeah.
additional studies. I'm not going to all this. So these are the 2 mistakes. I'm going to
Mhm.
continue to be in touch with my narcissist because he is holding the key to my healing.
Mhm.
Or I'm going to assume a victimhood stance. uh, by becoming an angel, I will make my narcissist a demon.
Yes.
That's also a bad solution.
Okay. Um, Dr. Sam Bagnin, thank you so much for your time, for your work. Uh, you are always very inspiring to me,
Thank
and
you for
I
having
hope
me.
everybody sees this because I think it has very important information. So it's really nice, and thank you for your time again.
Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah. Okay.
Take care.
Take care. Thank you.